Fishy Lake. The Wright family loves fishing. They head to a nearby lake every weekend. They used to catch a lot of fish. Now, they are lucky to end up with 2 fish altogether. There are other differences at the lake. The water used to be crystal blue. Recently, it started looking a lot greener. It even smells a bit nasty. Mr. Wright is getting worried about it. There is a factory about a mile away from the lake. Mrs. Wright suspects they are responsible for the changes. They're probably dumping their waste in the water, she says. That's probably killing all the fish. They probably won't eat the fish they catch there anymore. Get a job. Jeff was a 40-year-old man. He had no job. He never even went to school. Jeff had lived with his parents his whole life. They were starting to worry about him. All Jeff did every day was to play video games. "You need to do something with your life," said his parents. Jeff ignored them. He was happy with his life. Jeff's parents came up with a plan. They started asking him for rent money. "How am I supposed to pay that?" asked Jeff. "With a job," replied his mom. When Jeff didn't give them rent, they took all his video games and sold them. Jeff was furious. He went out to look for a job. He needed to buy the video games back. A trip to Six Flags. George's best friend was visiting him. Joseph lived in Arizona. George moved to Los Angeles 2 years ago. He hadn't seen Joseph since then. George wanted his friend to have fun. He wanted to convince him to move to Los Angeles with him. George had a great idea. He would take his friend to Six Flags. They didn't have big roller coasters in Arizona. George and Joseph got on a ride called Tatsu. It was huge and had more than 5 loops. Joseph screamed more than any other people. "Isn't this great?" asked George. "If you move here, we'll be coming here all the time." Joseph never returned to Los Angeles again. The last cigarette. Mr. White had a bad habit. He was a chain smoker. Mr. White knew his addiction was unhealthy. He couldn't even take walks anymore. He spent all day coughing. Mr. White spent 1 year trying to quit smoking. He would always buy a pack and promise himself it would be his last cigarette. Mr. White went to his doctor for a checkup. His doctor asked him to take an X-ray. They found a tumor on his left lung. He had cancer from all the smoking. Mr. White went home scared. He threw out his cigarettes, but he kept one. This would finally be his last cigarette. Greeting from space. Wilson had always wanted to be an astronaut. His kindergarten teacher had told him that was impossible. "That's nice," she said. "But you'll probably never make it." Wilson thought she was very mean. Still, he never gave up his dream. 20 years later, Wilson proved her wrong. He was on space mission to the moon. While looking down on Earth, Wilson thought of his old teacher. He wished she could see him now. He grabbed his camera, and took a picture of himself in his spacesuit. 1,000,000 stars were in the background. As soon as he landed back on Earth, he ran to the post office. He mailed the picture to the mean teacher.